This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. It is great to be back on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Andrew Paterson here, soon to be joined by Michael Remis, and Connor Rabchak's going to be jumping on as well. A little later on, we'll talk to Mike McIntyre, big signing in Jetsland today on one of their RFAs, which we'll touch on in just a minute. And then a little later on today, the latest on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are back at practice, getting ready for another sold-out game at Princess Auto Stadium on Friday night, and looking for a little revenge against the Calgary Stampeders, who whooped them pretty good, handing them their first loss of the year, their last time out. And, of course, the Bombers had to chew on that all through the bye week. So a little later on today, we'll get the latest on the Bombers with DT after practice. Hey, right off the bat, and we're going to bring in Remis in a minute. I want to give a big shout out to our friends out at Aikens Lake Lodge. Many of you probably saw the tweets that I rolled out from Wednesday. On the final day of our scheduled fishing trip, we were supposed to come back Thursday. Needless to say, we got out a little earlier because of what had happened. It was unlike anything that I've ever seen before. I described it as basically a nuclear bomb of fire. There were forest fires around in the area. We'd known that. The smoke wasn't really even an issue for the first couple days. But 40-kilometer-hour south winds acted like a nuke on that thing, and I mean, it was a pretty frightening situation. I'm not gonna lie, but I just want to thank Pitt, in particular, Kieran and Kurt, who were with us, our guides who handled everything incredibly, and the entire staff there for doing everything they could to, I think, calm people's nerves as much as possible, working hard to get those planes in and get everybody out. The rest of the staff, for the most part, left the next morning. And as of right now, there's 8 or 9 people that are still at the main camp working on protecting it from the fire. And incredibly, having been there, I still can't believe that this is true. It basically is like a miracle. The Lost Lake and the GGO outposts were saved. And the guys that were still around were, as you can see, if you're with us on YouTube right now, you can see that video of our return from the shore lunch to the main camp was, I described it, the only way you can say it was like apocalyptic. But the work that all those people did to save those buildings and keep everybody safe was incredible. So it's going to be a little bit before they're able to take guests back in. But we're all thinking about our friends out at Aikens Lake right now. Those that are there, those that are displaced, and I hope that we'll be back on the water catching big ones very, very soon. I do want to give a shout out to Mark Larveld and his brother Wayne. Mark was the winner of the auction with the Health Sciences Center Foundation. And there's that. They somehow saved that. That is just, I still cannot believe that happened. They were able to do it. But Mark and his brother Wayne were so much fun to have along with us. And of course, thanks to them for supporting the charity as well. Wayne was a first-time fisherman, had never really done it before, got into the swing of things the first couple days. And at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, before all hell break loose, he pulled a 29-inch walleye out of the building, which normally, or out of the lake, I should say, which normally would have been the story around Aikens. He would have gotten his mug, the big presentation at dinner. Unfortunately for Wayne, that didn't happen because Mother Nature had other plans. But congrats on that big one. Appreciate meeting you guys and had such a great time out there with you all. So it was a slower week. I kind of felt bad that of all the weeks that I was off the show, it was the Bomber bye week right after everything that happened hockey-wise with the Jets. But we do have Jets news to talk about, and that is the signing of Morgan Barron, a 2-year deal at 1.85 AAV. We'll dive into that, the Canadian Football League, and a whole bunch more as we get into it. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, great to see everyone again. Shout out to all of you. Hit that thumbs up button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Appreciate all you podcast listeners. We do have a new series of content coming up. A couple new things. First of all, check the channel. Schnitzy, along with Connor Rabchak, have a Bombers Weekly now, which will be there for you on Monday morning. That is up. If you haven't seen it, please make sure to check it out. Leave a comment. And along with our friends at Coolbet, part of the expansion of WST, bringing Connor on board, there's a lot of stuff that I used to do in the lock shop with Jake and Pat over at Coolbet. We've got a new series called WST Winners, which already sort of includes CFL 110. Of course, Jeff Hamilton and I will be doing our picks tomorrow and all the latest news in and around the Canadian Football League. But we're going to be expanding our kind of Coolbet content outside of the main show for those of you that like to bet, that love to do pools, love to play fantasy. And we will have a separate podcast feed for that as well. So we'll get you details on that. But today, after WST, we'll premiere our first episode of that. It's going to be myself and Jake Bowen-Moss on the Major League Baseball All-Star break. The Jays, their opening of the season, where they're right now, odds to win the division, to be a playoff team, as well as some of our other favorite futures around the league at the All-Star break. And then, of course, we'll dive in with picks for the Home Run Derby. So stick around today. After WST, we'll have that premiering right after Michael and I finish things up. And great to have Coolbet on for an extended long-term partnership, bigger and better things coming. And this is really going to get good come NFL time, because we will have an extended NFL pick show. We just didn't have enough time in the Coolbet lines to get it done every week. So myself, Jake, Pat, we'll do a bunch of hockey content with Connor and Remo. So there's going to be a lot more fun stuff on the channel. Just make sure that you're subscribed, and we'll give you details on the podcast feed if you do want it on the audio version. Huge thanks to all the sponsors, including our partners at Coolbet, who make WST happen every day. Of course, Princess Auto, Manitoba Battery, Rolly's Transfer and St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge and F Apparel, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, the Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs, and Breezy Bend, home of the 2025 Manitoba Open. We'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray, and of course some fan feedback for Fans First. So let's get it going. Remo, what's going on? How did you make it out last week with a quieter than normal schedule and having to go it alone? Sorry about that. The timing was not good.
Hey, I was happy that you were able to get away for some time off, so I think that was a plus, and it was a good week to do that. It was certainly a slower week. Monday, very busy. We played all the Nikolaj Ehlers comments. I know there are a couple people in chat who were ready to move on, but I think it's important to go through those. We played the comments from Taves and the Scrums, and Scott O'Neill and Kevin Shovel-Dayoff. That was very interesting Monday. A bit slower with the Bombers on a bye. Lots of looking ahead to Week 6 of CFL, and we almost didn't have that first game with Calgary and Saskatchewan getting postponed, but according to their own protocols, it should have been canceled if they couldn't start it. I'm sure you and Jeff will talk about that delay on CFL 110, and we'll talk about it later on in the show. And the rest of the week, NHL CBA, details on that came out. Very interesting, and a lot of talk about Sportsnet raising the prices, rocking hockey fans. That was a big one last week, and yeah, some good conversations with a number of guests. Marshall Ferguson, some great CFL on Thursday. Chris Peters on the prospect news. Gavin McKenna going to Penn State from Medicine Hat. Big news too there. So we found our way through talking about
Listen.
everything. Yes.
The one thing I will admit, I mean, I was having a great time, and obviously my mind was somewhere else on Wednesday, really through to Thursday and Friday. I'll be honest, that entire situation was kind of harrowing, and was a little rattled, but just happy that everything worked out okay. I did have a huge amount of FOMO and regret for not being on the air last week when the biggest story in hockey was a complete moron taking a run on a golf course at former NHLer Nick Tarnasty. I'm trying to think of the last time. I mean, listen, there's lots of idiots fighting in a variety of places, sporting venues, the streets, whatever. So you see some of these things pop up. But Remo, that was maybe the most viral fight video that has been on the internet streets in a really long time. And it had a little bit of everything. A really tough guy beating the hell out of a dude that absolutely deserved it because he was the aggressor. I will say this. It was enjoyable to watch. I think that's part of the reason why people had so much fun talking about it. But it was the perfect example that in life today, I think our society needs more consequences. And this might have been the perfect example of there are consequences to some of the choices that you made. And that dude made one of the worst decisions you will ever make, playing tough guy with a guy that had over 150 or 160 professional fights.
Yeah, I got sent this one early last week, and I mean, you want to be like, how dumb are these guys for fighting on the golf course? But it was Nick Tarnasty trying to tell the guy who was ahead of him, saying, hey, you're taking too long. You've had too much to drink. You can't even tee up your own ball. Maybe you should go home. And the guy thought he clearly had too much to drink. And he's like, I'm going to play tough guy, and charged at the former NHL, enforcer. And yeah, got thrown in the lake. And I think he thought that would be the end of it, but he kept going back for more. And so he's like, okay, this guy's running at me. I got to defend myself or say him, hey, stop, man. And crazy, how viral that went. And everyone's like, yeah, this guy was acting like a dummy, and he got dummied.
That is exactly right. The self-commentating your own fight by announcing bang every time you hit a guy, also an all-time move. Starting it off by threatening and then successfully throwing the guy in the pond, and then finishing it off with just a straight up, sack of potatoes throw was it. So anyways, I did regret not being able to get into that right away, but I knew that everyone was having a little bit of fun with that. Yes, here he is right at the end. Like, what is that guy thinking? Look how much bigger Tarnasty is at him. And I mean, it wasn't like that guy was being a bully or anything like that. In fact, I will say that the small guy with the mouth and the poor decision-making skills was given about 100 outs to avoid what ended up happening. He didn't take any of them and ended up getting what he deserved. He did put forth a video afterwards that kind of owned up to it, said that they played 36. He was hammered. I guess maybe a little bit of trying to resuscitate his image because everybody saw him probably at one of his lowest moments, and he took many L's that day. As far as legit, real hockey news, though, Remis, we do have some today in Winnipeg, and one of the Jets' RFAs is signed, and it is Morgan Barron, who gets a 2-year deal at $1.85 million AAV. Now, Barron's coming off, modest offensive numbers for the last 3 years. The 22-23 season, 8 goals, 13 assists for 21 points. Last year, like the previous season, was 11 goals, 7 assists for 18 points in 80 games. And last year, 74 games, 8 goals, 7 assists for 15 points. But for me, Barron became a far more intriguing piece of the puzzle after the trade deadline when he was moved to center. And, I had speculated on this show that I was of the hope that maybe they could work something out for Barron to give him a little bit more on an average annual value, somewhere between 2 and 2.5, maybe try and get him at a longer deal. Obviously, they've worked this out where he's a Winnipeg Jet for the next couple seasons. I do think he's going to have the opportunity to prove his worth to the team in a much greater role this year, especially when you consider Adam Lowry's situation coming into the season with Lowry on the shelf for likely the first couple months. Jonathan Toews is going to come back. We'll see how he is right out of the gate. Like Morgan Barron on this shorter deal, I think is going to have an opportunity to play up in the lineup, produce more, have more opportunity for points, and certainly from his perspective, have an opportunity to earn an even bigger contract in a couple years. But I think it's a good bit of business on the Jets side of things. I think it's certainly a fair number for the team and the player. But I'm really high on Barron and where he fits into this lineup moving forward. So I was hoping they might be able to have a little bit more security on Barron for more than 2 years. But overall, I like it. Net money makes sense. Where are you at?
Yeah, this came in right around the projection here, $1.85 million for 2 years. I think this was a pretty easy one to get done. He had 15 points in 74 games last year, 18 points in 80. But I think there might be something untapped there. Like you said, once he moved to center, we saw him score his signature goal going down the wing. We know, according to NHL Edge stats, he's one of the fastest skaters in the league. And with Adam Lowry out, there's certainly opportunity for him to outplay this contract. But based on what he's done, this is the fair number. And we'll see where he slots in. There's going to be opportunity for him with Adam Lowry out, like you said. And after this contract, he's currently 26 years old. He's going to be a UFA. So we'll have to see, in, I guess, after next season. I don't know if there's a Trent Frederick style extension coming here or what, Hustler, or what his future is with the Winnipeg Jets. But it is important to note, UFA after this one, this was an RFA contract. They filed for arbitration. It was almost 1 or 2 years to the day. I think it was the 18th of 2023. He had the first 2-year one with the Jets. And so, yeah, I think interesting. We'll see where he slots in and if he can take a bit of a leap here this season.
Well, speaking of that leap, I think with, the added confidence that, he's gained, and I think the coaching staff kind of understanding, where he fits and what he's capable of, maybe a little bit more than had been in the past. I'm looking for a big bump in his production this year. Okay, so he's got a career high of 21 points. Last year was 15. Was often playing limited minutes, on the fourth line. I think a 30-point season's very possible for Morgan Barron next year. Be interesting when we talk to the Cool Bet guys for WST Winners segments and the show, what that Barron number might be. I will get one for that, and I will be taking the over on Morgan Barron for next season. Can guarantee on that. We're going to get into more of this with Connor and with Mike coming up in just a few minutes. You did mention that the weekend in the Canadian Football League, and we'll get our big takeaways in a minute when we welcome Connor and Reem for a little three-way discussion. But that scene in Regina was nuts. And I'm sure your biggest disappointment was not what actually happened in the game, was the fact that it didn't start at 12:15 our time on Friday night.
100%. I was there playing like NHL on Xbox, being like, okay, is this game going to go here? We could potentially have a 12-15 start. And one of my favorite memories is coming home from the bar and there was a rain-delayed Dodgers game still on at 4 a.m. local time. This was years ago. So a 12:15, local start time here, that would be 11:15 p.m. in Regina. Really looking forward to it. You weren't sure if they were going to be able to get it in. The rules for postponing games is, okay, if it's been 3 hours, it's just canceled. The commission, I don't know who's making decisions, but they stepped in and said, let's just play this thing tomorrow. It's the first game of the week. That's the common sense solution. I did see, because they were there so late Friday, the concessions, had pretty much ran out. They were saying, hey, not everything's going to be open, but on the bright side, you could bring in your own food. So it actually sounded like it could have been a cool atmosphere on Saturday. Obviously, in Regina, though, a lot of fans who are Rough Riders fans are driving distances. So I don't know how feasible it is for them to, leave and come back. I think it was disappointing for the people that were there. But with the air quality the way it is, not safe to play the game. But you would have liked them to find a way as to figure this out a bit sooner. I think a lot of reports said, okay, this isn't going to clear out, but CFL believed that it was going to be a short delay. I mean, we saw it here yesterday morning, very early, like 7, 8 o'clock, it was fine outside, but I went outside 10:30 and I was like, this air quality, not great. And then by the afternoon, it had cleared up. So it can change quickly, the air quality. So maybe they thought it would be that situation, but it did not come to fruition. And I'm happy they got the game in. It would be a shame if they did not be able to. But that was the policy that's saying, hey, 3-hour delay.
Well, I talked to Dusty. Yeah. I talked to Dusty today on the Lock Shop, and he said that 3-hour rule is for games that have started.
Okay.
So this game hadn't started yet. So they were pushing back the start time to start it. But like you will recall, we had a game that started here in Winnipeg.
Yes, the Line A draft game. I remember that one.
Yeah, exactly. And that ended up getting started at like 10:30 or something like that. Or sorry, getting restarted. So from what he told me, they were monitoring the air in Moose Jaw because I guess they thought that was the way that was coming and the numbers were good there and they expected it to be that way in Regina and it just didn't happen soon enough. Craziest thing right now as we deal with all this smoke is if you go to these, like the whatever, the chart or the graph that says, okay, what the air quality is, it is a scale out of 10. And if you go there lately, you've been seeing things like 11 and 12 and an icon of just a guy wearing a gas mask. So that is sort of where we are at right now. We got the
it's 3 in Winnipeg right now.
Okay, yeah, well that's nothing. That's not too much, but we were way past 10 into the very high risk and they obviously don't want people outside or they don't want to I guess add to the exposure. And let's face it, the athletes too. But what a crazy situation. I mean, Calgary had nowhere to stay. They were doing 4 in a room bunking the players in the dorm there in the U of R. And I do know that there was a lot of Rider fans that came in that didn't want to miss the game, that had nowhere to go, and they ended up just having to sleep in cars. So I will shout out the Rider fans that dealt with that. And I'll tell you what, Rider fans, talk to your people. I know we've got a great rivalry between the Riders and the Bombers, but in this case, I'm on the side of the Rider fans. In Winnipeg, when there had been extended delays, shout out to management for taking care of the fans. They made beer pre-game prices, $5. I think now it's $6. And people were able to, they announced it, stick around, we appreciate you waiting it out, beer's on sale. It was still the $9 beers in Regina all night. So, you want to get that loyalty back of the Rider fan that maybe has waned a little bit. Win football games. They didn't do that on the weekend, but maybe some cheap beers for people that are sitting there watching an empty field would have been a nice place to start. All right, we're going to do a little three-way action, talking the Barron deal, CFL takeaways, Jays at the break, Mike McIntyre coming up in about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll check in on Bomber practice a little later on. Hey, big thanks to our friends at Rolly's Transfer for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you've got to move this summer, lean on Rolly's, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family-owned and operated in the city for over 60 years. Head on over to Rollies.com. You can click on Request an Estimate and let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly with the great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rollies has been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all of your moving needs, shop local and get the most trusted name in the game, Rollies Transfer. Find out more or request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. All smiles over here on WST. And speaking of smiles, St. Vital Dental Center, great partners of ours, Dr. Terry and his wonderful staff waiting for you and your family if you need a wide array of dental services. Pretty much everything under the sun, from cleanings and checkups all the way to things like dental implants. And of course, St. Vital Dental Center has been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans for years. Now with a beautiful new facility, 167 St. Anne's Road, free parking right in the background, and smiling faces waiting to greet you. For all your dental needs, go to stviteldental.ca, make an appointment, and tell them the boys at WST sent you. Shout out to our pal Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. Out on a boat this weekend for a little bit. And of course, my pal got his battery at Manitoba Battery. One of the people that doesn't need to wake up. A lot of people do, though, because they're still spending way more than they should at the big box stores. Sometimes $50, $60 more on a battery for things like boats and campers. Manitoba Battery has the best prices on batteries for literally everything, but everything you need this summer. Jet skis, ATVs, they've got it all at the best prices in town, and they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. So pop by and see them in store, Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive, or order online by calling them or ordering at manitobabattery.com. And hey, just before we bring in Connor and Reem, I did enjoy the Canadian Club coolers again this week. If you have not tried these, pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts. We already knew the CC and ginger ale was amazing. That premixed cocktail was everywhere at the Bomber games last year. But now they've added the Citrus Splash and the Half and Half, which is basically like an Arnold Palmer, along with Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. So you want to take your summer to the next level, these summer weekends, get your hands on the Club Pack Canadian Club, on sale now at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And of course, when you're thinking Canadian whiskey, there's only one choice, the original Canadian Club, also available at your local Manitoba liquor marts. All right. It is so great. Now that we've got Connor on board full time, he's doing a lot of other things, helping us produce the WST winter segments, which will premiere right after WST today. But especially on weeks like these, it gives us an opportunity to get the whole gang together and do a little three-way here. And let's get Connor and Reem in on us on a little three-way shot right now. And we'll start off with the Morgan Barron contract. Of course, if you just popped in, Barron, a 2-year deal, 1.85 AAV. And I would say a very expanded role, especially right out of the gate with the move to center, what he showed at the end of last season. And of course, Adam Lowry on the shelf, recovering from that hip surgery. We'll get the boys up here and then start it off. Connor, what's going on? Welcome. The first time as a full-time employee, we've got the whole gang together.
Yeah, we're looking good, the three of us. I'm happy to be here, Huss. Lots of great content coming to the channel. As you mentioned, WST Bombers report. If people didn't watch it this morning, Schnitzy and I, that was a super fun time. It was the bye week, so we got into some different topics. It was episode 1. Went a little long. I think it was over 40 minutes or just around 40 minutes. But I am so excited and counting down the days for this Friday night matchup against the Calgary Stampeders. Huss, I can't wait. And we finally got some Jets news to talk about. So it's projecting to be a busier week on WST.
All right. Now we'll do this segment or segments like this in a few different ways, but I will ask the questions today. Remis, I will start with you. Let's go with the Jets, the Barron news today. Quick thoughts on the deal. And subsequently, now that this is done, which RFA deal that still needs to get done, Samberg or Velarde, do you think will be more of a challenge for the Jets?
I think Gabe Velarde. I think with Dylan Samberg, everything we're hearing is that he wants to stay. You know, the Jets defenseman, he's been a huge mainstay there. I think Velarde, there's some questions on health for sure. And, he had a great year to start and then kind of cooled off in the second half. So I would have to say Gabe Velarde. We haven't really heard any reports that's saying, Velarde and we just haven't heard anything at all. Elliott's been going on saying, Samberg, that's going to be an easy one. I think you've heard it from him. So I think this Samberg one maybe gets done quicker. Might be a bit more challenging because he's a defensive defenseman. You can't really go by points. But Filardi, I think, had a bit of an up and down year and it didn't end great with the injury, and I don't think he was 100% in the playoffs. So I'm kind of curious. He's 25. He's turning 26 in August. How many years are they going to want to go for? And I think Samberg is like, okay, let's lock this guy up as long as we can. So that would be my vote. Sorry, Con. I know you're the biggest Samberg stan out there. So
you know
I
who
probably
I'm
stole
taking
all your points here.
But that doesn't necessarily make it easier to get it done. I mean,
that is true.
We can all be huge fans of Dylan Samberg. Listen, counterpoint as I throw it to you, the fact that everyone knows how great of a player he is, how important he is to the Winnipeg Jets, this is not news to any of us, and it's not news to Dylan Samberg's agent either. And Connor, the other side of it is NHL deals, more often than not, the number one thing that's determined where you are in the pecking order is offensive production. And Dylan Samberg does a ton of things well. I think he's got more potential for greater offensive numbers. But as of right now, as they're doing the deal, doesn't have them. So does that make finding a amicable number to do an 8-year deal maybe a little bit more difficult than it would be Gabriel Vilardi, who's the numbers are what they are?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go with Samberg on this one as well, because I think what Remis brought up there is important in terms of the years. Like, I think you heard Elliot Friedman say that this one's going to be easy. He wants to go long term. I think both the Jets and Dylan Samberg are going to, be sitting at the negotiation table saying, okay, we know that this is 7 or 8 years. It's going to be long term, whatever. And there are a lot of comparables that have come out over the last couple of weeks here as RFAs and UFAs are being signed. And yes, Dylan Samberg is an interesting study in terms of like, okay, he's incredibly valuable, but he doesn't really get the points. Like, would any of us be shocked if he makes less than Neil Pionk on a long-term deal? No. I think a lot of the comparables that are coming in, Faravari, Romanov from the New York Islanders, those guys are falling in the 6.5, 6.25 range on long-term deals. So I think there are a lot of comparables out there. They know that they both want to go long-term, or at least that's what the reports are saying. So I think that one's going to be easier to do. In terms of Gabe Vilardi, the one thing for me is like, okay, he's 25, he's an RFA. The Jets probably want a bridge because of the injury history. They probably want to go, a couple years, maybe not long term. But what if Gabe Vilardi's camp is looking for more of that 4 to 5 year deal for that UFA years to come up when he's 29 or 30? I think that could be a bit of a holdup. Also, I think he's a trickier number. Like, I don't think the Dylan Samberg one, there's a lot of comparables out there, like I mentioned, of defensemen in that same range that have signed over the last couple of weeks. Gabe Vilardi, like, is he a $6 million player? Is he a $7 million player? 7.5? There's, I think, a wider range in terms of AAV for Gabe Vilardi and years. So I'm going to go Dylan Samberg as the easier deal to get done. And I think the one that gets done soonest.
Yeah, I'm with you, on that. I mean, as I look, Vilardi does... Like, the thing is, I don't know about the bridge, because I think the Jets are going to want some UFA years if they're signing him to a deal. Sure. Like, I don't think they want to walk him right to unrestricted free agency. I mean, if they do, it'll be a much cheaper deal. But for me, as a guy with the injury history that Vilardi's had, and listen, yeah, he did get hurt at the end of the year and maybe wasn't entirely right for the playoffs. But he had a game, he had a season where he played a career-high 71 games. And, you wonder whether that is enough for the Jets to feel confident that he is a guy that they can invest in that will be in the lineup. I mean, the best ability for a player is availability. And, that hasn't always been the case with Vilardi. So that could be somewhat contentious. But I sort of am with you guys. I do think that the more difficult one, the more challenging one will be the Vilardi deal. Because while I think that there are some numbers that, you might think Dylan Samberg gets a lower deal, or it might be tougher to come to an agreement, I really do think that the feeling is mutual on wanting to do something long-term, get him the money that he deserves. And I think the Winnipeg Jets are ready to do exactly that. We'll certainly have some more. The Mike will have a take on this, and then we'll also be following these two, and we'll wait for arbitration dates as well, because that often is something that will move things along as we get closer to it. CFL week. Remo, let me start with you. I'll just simply ask you this. Your biggest takeaway from the 3 games over the weekend in the Canadian Football League, which of course didn't include Winnipeg or Montreal or Toronto.
Watch out for Calgary. This was a team that coming into the season, when you look at futures, really low down, didn't have high expectations, and maybe they should have. They signed Vernon Adams at quarterback, who's having an MOP type season before they brought in Nathan Rourke, and they go into Saskatchewan, the Rough Riders undefeated. Calgary, they're having this delayed game. They're sleeping, as you said, 4 to a room in the dorms. And here comes Vernon Adams throwing for 428 yards. And how about this first overall pick, Damien Alford? What a game. Clark Barnes is out. He steps in, 6 catches, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. Calgary now beating the Bombers, who hadn't lost yet. You knocked them off. That was the Stampede Bowl, and now knocking off the undefeated Rough Riders. They just bounced 2 teams that hadn't lost yet, and they're coming here Friday. Now, the Bombers have the advantage coming in off the bye. I think Calgary, they're probably going to be a slight underdog in this game, but this West Division, minus Edmonton, I think it could be anyone's game. So I'm very impressed with what we've seen from Calgary, who's currently in first place in the standings, or tied with Saskatchewan.
It's been a pretty amazing couple weeks. Really, just start to the season for Calgary. I mean, they lost that one game at home to Ottawa on Dustin Crum when it was like 4 degrees and brutal weather game. But I mean, to bounce back, beating the crap out of the Bombers at home, and then going to Regina with everything else surrounding that game, waiting an extra day, and then thumping a 4-0 team. Pretty damn impressive, and we'll have a lot more to say on the Calgary Stampeders and the rematch between Winnipeg and Calgary as we get closer to Friday. Connor, what about you? Big takeaway from the week in the Canadian Football League.
Well, I just feel bad for Elks fans, but my takeaway is going to be about the Elks. I think Trey Ford is either headed to the bench or is maybe, a couple quarters away from being headed to the bench. The Elks are on their bye, and then coming out of the bye, they go on the road against the Rough Riders. They're home to the Ticats, on the road against the Alouettes. And they're already 1-5. And Trey Ford, I mean, he had 34 passing yards or something super low in that game against BC. They barely had the ball as an offense. Every time they got the ball, it was 2 and outs. He was missing open guys. He was running for his life, trying to make something happen. And you have Cody Fajardo there in the TSN broadcast. I mean, it's so classic. Every time they go 2 and out, they cut right to Cody Fajardo standing there with his helmet on. It's like, he's ready to go. He's still there.
Hey, he got a lot of camera time.
Yeah, he did. He's still there. The backup quarterback's most popular position in sports. But yeah, I think Trey Ford, whether he comes out of this bye as the starter, if that's the case, he comes out of the bye as a starter, I think he's on a very short leash, but I also wouldn't be shocked to see Cody Fajardo be the starter for that road game in Saskatchewan 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I really thought that it was I thought that last week against Ottawa was a must win for Edmonton.
He played great in that game too.
They got it done, and I was really disappointed in what Edmonton did. And listen, Trey Ford stunk. He was 4 of 12 for 30-odd yards and a pick. Cody Fajardo, I think, went 5 for 7 when he came in towards the end of the game, and whatever, you give him a few reps. But my God, is that defense an absolute disaster. And when you think about what the money they spent, they basically brought in the Grey Cup defensive line. They got run over. 30 carries for Butler, 174 yards, and that's on top of Rourke going for 300 plus. They couldn't stop them at all. The final score was completely flattering to the Edmonton Elks, and I'm with you. Like Dusty asked me today on the Lock Shop, do you think you just roll with Ford for a little bit, at least through this season, and see what you have? I'm not sure that they don't know what they have right now. And that's a guy that you can't really trust week in and week out to give your team the best chance to win. Now, would they look a lot different if they, for instance, had VA instead of Cody Fajardo? What would that have cost? What would that have... I think you could certainly make the argument that if they were able to get him as opposed to Calgary, they'd be in a way better situation. And the money they lost to put into some of those defensive players that they invested in wouldn't be missed very much, certainly based on what we've seen so far on the on what's happening on the defensive side of the football. Doug Flutie wouldn't have won that game yesterday for them.
Huss, here's a crazy stat. Okay, this is from John Hodge, 3 Down Nation. He's on this show lots, and he's awesome. The CFL started tracking time of possession in 1996. The BC Lions had 42 minutes and 54 seconds with the ball in that game. That's the second highest total of all time since they started tracking it. Like, the defense couldn't get off the field. They couldn't stop them. They had the ball for 42 minutes. That is absurd. And it's like, yeah, Trey Ford wasn't in rhythm. He attempted 12 passes and they were losing the whole game. Like, he barely had the ball too. So yeah, that defense, I mean, we saw it firsthand here in Winnipeg. Zach Collaros had like 5 incompletions in that game, went for 330 and 3 touchdowns. So they've got some major questions on the defensive side of the ball. And when you give up the second most time of possession in a single game since 1996, that is cause for concern, and it's going to be a long bye week in Edmonton, I think.
All right, my biggest takeaway, I'm sort of with Remo. I would have maybe gone to Calgary and talked about their excellent defense. We mentioned the Elks and their atrocious defense. I think there's an element of, okay, Nathan Rourke is definitely back and looking great, with the performance that he had. But I'm going to go to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I think my biggest takeaway is that the Ticats are very much live in the East, and they're being led by Bo Levi Mitchell, who now with Kenny Lawler in the fold has absolutely no qualms about throwing at that guy literally anywhere on the field in double coverage. It doesn't matter. He had another monster game on the weekend, couple of crazy grabs in traffic. And when you think about what Bo did last year, first of all, being the one real quarterback to be able to stay healthy all season, which most of the others weren't able to do, but put up those incredible numbers. I mean, Bo would have been the MOP if the Ticats had probably gotten off to a bit better of a start. I guess he lost his job for a couple of weeks. That has to be factored in. But this offense that Hamilton's rolling out right now is able to run and gun with anybody in the Canadian Football League right now. And if the Ticats are able to have a little bit more success on the defensive side of the football, I think you're going to be seeing a team that is going to be live when it comes to playing the likes of Montreal, who really does seem to be the team to beat, or even the Argos. By the way, quick note on the Argos. Chad Kelly's not even with the team right now. He's rehabbing in Buffalo, so doesn't look like he's going to be back in time for week 7, which we thought was the earliest time that he would be back right now. We'll definitely dive into a lot more of this coming up on CFL 110 tomorrow when Jeff and I get going. We'll have that for you here on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. All right, well, it is the baseball all-star game tomorrow. It is the home run derby tonight. As we mentioned, if you missed the start of the show, we've got a bunch of new content on the program. We'll have our first WST winners episode talking Jays at the break, AL and NL futures, and then our picks for the Derby tonight. That's going to come right after WST with myself and Jake Boland-Moss, presented by Coolbet. But Remis, thoughts on the Blue Jays at the break? Now, I'll say this. As someone that bet on them a couple times on the weekend, it wasn't exactly a great finish to the first half, dropping the series against the Athletics. But I'll tell you what, you tell any Jays fan that, oh, you're going to be 14 games above 500 with a 2-game lead over the New York Yankees at the break, they would have certainly taken it. No one's disputing the fact that this was an amazing first half by the Yankees. My question for you, though, is, are you buying or selling the Blue Jays as a legitimate playoff contender? Not just one that will make the playoffs. They certainly should. I mean, the odds will tell you that they will be in. But can this team do a little bit of damage? Can they win some games? Can they be something other than the team that was so quickly dispatched in their last couple times in the postseason?
Yeah, Blue Jays never won a playoff series in the Shapiro-Atkins era. It's been so...
Have they won a game?
I don't think so. They lost to Seattle. It's been so disappointing, us, and we thought they hadn't really brought in any prospects. Well, this Addison Barger, I know you and Jake spent a lot of time talking about him. I mean, he's certainly becoming a star. on the Blue Jays this year, and you're hearing rumors that, the Blue Jays are looking at bringing an arm. And at the trade deadline, are they going to bring in Zach Gallen or someone like Mitch Keller? Those are names being mentioned. Run differential looking good, 7-3 in your last 10. You're in first place. And I think most importantly, the American League, not very strong. The Yankees are pretty good. They have Aaron Judge. Red Sox, they're 3 back. They're unloading. Tampa, they're above 500, but I think it's a down season. And Baltimore, a disaster. The Central, majority of only the Detroit Tigers are above 500. And, the West, Rangers, disappointment. You have Houston, Seattle. So there's not a lot of contenders. The Blue Jays are playing well. They have the bats. I really like that. And I think I'm tuning into the games where early on the season, this team, they stank last year at the bottom. I'm not excited about it. But now you certainly am. They're on every night. And I will say, you can criticize Rogers for raising the price of their Sportsnet Plus.
Sportsnet, yeah. That got them a lot of
That was the number one
week.
story in hockey last week. But, other than Nick Tarnasky. But one thing they do is they're not afraid to spend money and try to make their baseball team win. And there are too many teams out there, like the Athletics, who don't even have a name, who they played last weekend, who are just going to pocket their revenue sharing money and not improve their team. Too many teams not trying to win in MLB. The Blue Jays are one of them. They have Guerrero signed, and that just changed the trajectory of the team moving forward.
It's funny you mentioned, potential ads. Part of the reason why I am very excited to see what happens is we know the pressure that's on Atkins and Shapiro to get this team to the playoffs and, not necessarily win the World Series, but show something. I mean, avoid another embarrassing exit, like win a series, like make a name for yourself, this team that just hasn't happened so far in the playoffs. I think they'll be incredibly aggressive at the deadline. And, when you think the sort of found money of a guy like Barger, the season that George Springer's having, I think you're in a situation that, you can make an argument that this team is already really good, that with a couple of acquisitions from an aggressive front office, this is the team that really could be challenging the likes of the Yankees and the other teams in the AL. Connor, where are you buying or selling the Jays as a team that can make some noise come playoff time?
I'm buying. I mean, I don't know if they're in the same tier as maybe the Tigers and the Astros. I think them and the Yankees maybe make up that second tier. I do think they're, on a level playing field with the Yankees. Jake Ball and Moss of Coolbet on the WST winners, was saying, one MLB player doesn't make a whole team. It's a team sport. Aaron Judge can do all of these incredible things and win MVP, but the Yankees are struggling as of late, as we saw with that 4-game sweep the Blue Jays had of them a couple of weeks ago going into the break. But coming out of the break is going to be really interesting because the Jays have been incredible. I mean, they've won like over 80% of their series since the end of May. And they lost a series to the White Sox. They just lost a series to the Athletics. Coming out of the break, they play the Giants, the Yankees, the Tigers. They play some pretty good teams coming out of the break here. So I think it's going to be really interesting. We're going to find out what this team is all about coming out of the break, but I'm buying them as a contender. And if they can go out and add an arm of some kind, some bullpen arms that can really solidify that group that has kind of been their downfall this season so far, I'm in on them being a contender in the AL and being maybe on that level playing field with the Tigers and Astros catching up to them. But I do think right now, without any ads, they're one step below those teams.
Remis, I know you're a big Mariners guy. How are you feeling about your boy, the Big Dumper?
The best name.
It is one of the great nicknames ever. The Big Dumper, Cal Raleigh, Major League Baseball home run leader, one off of Barry Bonds' record for bombs at the All-Star break, which blew my mind. First of all, what do you think about him being in the Derby tonight? I don't know whether I'd want to have that guy in it, to be perfectly honest, with what we've seen has certainly happened to some guys in the Derby afterwards. And will the Big Dumper be the one dumping the most balls into the stands tonight in the HR Derby?
Yeah, American League record, 38 homers. Before, beating Ken Griffey Jr., beating everyone. It's pretty incredible what this guy's been doing. And at catcher, MVP caliber season. We'll see what Aaron Judge has to say. The home run derby is interesting. It could be someone coming out of nowhere. It could be someone tiring out. I think he would certainly be my pick in the home run derby. He's probably the favorite, and I'm interested in seeing him on a national stage and what he can do. So, in terms of like betting, it's probably better value. Like they're all really good hitters, and you can get good hitters at longer numbers, so there might be better value. But I'm in on Cal Raleigh. Let's see him continue to make a name for himself with this. He's been pretty good for a couple of years, but setting, as you said, one less than Barry Bonds for home runs before the All-Star break. Like he's up there with all-time home run hitters and what he's doing this season. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Derby tonight.
He's a catcher, isn't he?
Yes.
Like the thought of a catcher in 2025 with that sort of power, I mean, is just something that we haven't seen. One other interesting note, Connor, and again, folks, if you want more kind of in-depth on baseball, some fun on the Derby, some of the other big stories, you can join us a little later on, right after WST for the Derby and All-Star break program. But this is the games. I got to get back here. One of the most interesting things about tomorrow's game is that you've got Jacob Mizlorowski, the Miz, in Milwaukee. He's minus 250 to win AL Rookie of the Year. He has made an All-Star game in the shortest amount of games in Major League history. He has played 5. But the 6'7" flamethrower that routinely touches 103 is there. He's going to be in the game tomorrow night. And Connor, I'll be honest, the ad of a player like that, we'll talk about this more in the show coming up. I'm very intrigued about Milwaukee and their chances maybe to upset the apple cart there in the Central, get ahead of the Cubs, and how live they might be in an NL that is heavily weighted towards the defending champion Dodgers with all the expectations that they come with that crazy lineup.
Yeah, I think with Mizorowski and with Paul Skeens, you're seeing this like kind of evolution of these young pitchers that can throw like 102. Like Mizorowski, my little brother sent me a TikTok. I think he threw like a 97 mile an hour slider the other day. Like how do you even touch that as a hit? Like imagine standing in the batter's box for that, let alone a 103 fastball up and in, going right by your hands. It's incredibly fun to watch. And yeah, I know the Brewers, you guys went over the lines in the WST winners that's coming up later on here. They're kind of in the weeds waiting to get a player like that can kind of get them over the hump and put them in the race for the AL Central, or the NL Central, excuse me. But they are very, very interesting. And Mizorowski and Skeens and these young pitchers coming up that can, pump gas, as they say, are really, really fun to watch.
Do you have a pick for the Derby tonight?
How could I not take the Big Dumper? He's the favorite, and he's got the best nickname in sports.
I like this. I'm really interested in a couple of these young guys that are in it tonight. Like I was going through the numbers, and listen, I watched probably 10 innings of the Pirates this year, only because Paul Skeens has been pitching.
Exactly.
But this O'Neal Cruz, who's the second favorite, like when he gets his bat on the ball, he can put it into another atmosphere. Like he's a huge favorite, even money, to have the highest exit velo of any of his balls, but only has 16 on the year. But again, it is important. They're going to be getting meatballs the entire time as opposed to major league pitching. So I don't know. He and James Wood are pretty interesting contestants tonight too. It's always a fun one. Remis, are you going to be going to the Derby party? I guess now that Leibel has kids and he's busy, the home run derby, the annual home run derby festivities and celebration has gone by the way of the dodo bird.
That was fun when we went to Leibel's. I texted him last week to come on with me. He's always got some excuse that he can't do it. So he just moved.
Busy guy.
He just moved. He's getting a new job. He's having kids, whatever it is, but he just moves. We'll get him on at some point. But yes,
open invite for the rabbi, especially around now. Always a great guy to talk. Baseball. Coming up, Derek Taylor's going to join us. We're expecting Mike any minute. Derek Taylor's going to join us in about 2025. Not great news to start the week for Bomber practice. No Dalton Schoen. And anybody that was watching the fourth quarter of that blowout in Calgary, I know there was a lot of questions over, like, why the heck are these guys still in? We talked about it on the show. Michael Shea's not quitting. He's not waving up the weight flag or anything like that. But you want to have Dalton Schoen available for the rematch. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like that will be the case. Although he hasn't been available for practice. That doesn't necessarily mean the game. But we'll have DT jump on with us a little bit later on, and we can dive into that. All right, listen, we will be back at Princess Auto Stadium on Friday because the Bombers are back. It's already sold out. Get your tickets for the August 1st game before that one's sold out as well. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of WST and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and their home Princess Auto Stadium. Busy week at Stadium last week with the Big Def Leopard show and then the Country Thunder, which was very well attended. Of course, Princess Auto, founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg and now coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. See them on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Big shout out to our gang over at F Apparel. I know it's wedding season. Congratulations to everyone that's tying the knot. With that comes a lot of things. And guys, if you're looking in your closet, realize I need to step up my menswear game. Get on down ASAP to F Apparel, where you'll find the best in custom men's clothing, including custom suits starting at just $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories around. Visit them at 190 Smith Street in their beautiful new showroom, or check them out online at EPHapparel.com for more information on their wedding specials for wedding parties, as well as you can make an appointment to come in for a fitting and see the fellas there as well. And, I mentioned this off the top. Our friends at Aikens Lake are closed right now, evacuated all guests, most of the staff. We are crossing our fingers that this is going to pass in the next week or two. We'll be able to get back out there in August or September. I can't tell you, this is going to be a devastating period for them, losing all this business. So if you are thinking about getting out there, we've got a 10% discount for WST listeners. If you want to make a booking later on in August or into September, you will not be sorry. There's nothing like the Aikens experience. And as long as those fires are gone, it'll be a great time to do that. You can find out more information on everything going on at Aikens Lake at aikenslake.com. And as I posted a couple updates from there, give them a follow at Aikens Lake. Pitt and the gang there doing a great job keeping everybody safe and hopefully saving the lodge. All right. This looks like live from a golf cart somewhere. Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press joins us. Mike, what's up? You just at the turn now, or where are you?
Tough day at the office here, Huss. Tough day at the office. Just to be clear, I am working. I'm not playing. I'm at the, shout out to Not Auto Corp. They're the sponsor of the Manitoba Amateur, which is being held here at Southwood this week. Round 1 is underway of the 3-day event. And so I'm covering, again, really tough job. They had to twist my arm, get me to cover this this tournament. But yeah, day 1 of the Manitoba, of the Not Auto Corp Manitoba Amateur underway here at Southwood. And it's been a fun day on the course, actually. An incredible leaderboard, Huss. There are, now this is changing by the minute, it seems, but as I sit here right now, I believe there are 9 players that are currently tied for the lead at -3. There's like some, these are all amateurs, but there's some professional like scores happening out here at Southwood today. Now, the winds are extremely calm. And among those in the field, you've got Todd Fanning. He's, of course, very well-known Manitoba amateur golfer, one of the most decorated amateurs. He's in the clubhouse at -3. And Southwood's own Mitch Clinton, the pride of Southwood, a.k.a. the color commentator for the Winnipeg Jets. Mitch had an incredible start, Huss.
I got a text, Mike. I got a text from somebody. Shout out to Mike Lay, accountant to the stars. He sent me a message just with a screen cap of the leaders. It was Mitchell Clinton -3. Is like, is that Mitch from the Jets broadcast? I'm like, damn straight it is. He can swing it.
He sure can swing it. Now, unfortunately for Mitch, the start was a little better than the finish. Now, he still came in at +5, which I'll take a score in that stratosphere any day of the week. But he did have an incredible start, and he was among the early leaders here this morning. There's the crowded leaderboard as well. Brent Ingram, shout out to Brent Ingram, aka the son of Derek Ingram, who was the sole leader as he made the turn here. Unfortunately, Huss, he's run into some trouble on the back nine and has faded a little bit. But it's a great leaderboard, and I love this event. This has been the Braxton Kuntz event over the last several years. Like he was automatic out here. He won amateur after amateur after amateur. It's wide open this year though, because Braxton is turning pro, no longer eligible to play. And so it's a fun, wide open field. And I'll have a story coming today, kind of wrapping up round one. Weber is going to be out here tomorrow. We're kind of tag teaming this. So Kenny is going to be out here for round 2 tomorrow. And then I'll have the third and final round covered on Wednesday. But again, I just want to reiterate, Huss, what a tough assignment this is to spend the day out on the golf course. And I even have my own little personalized golf cart here with a little media decal. Shout out to Brian Munz.
Munz is taking. I saw Munzy yesterday out at Southwood. I was there for the RBC Scramble, doing some stuff at Coolbet, and they were all getting ready for today. Be funny to follow Ken on the golf course covering golf. I wonder whether he talks to other people's balls as much as he talks to his own ball when he's out there. Listen, let's get to, by the way, Braxton Kuntz, he's not in the AM this year, planning on turning pro after his great run at Ball State. That is expected, I'm hearing, to likely be. He is, of course, the pride of Breezy Bend at the Manitoba Open on his home course. What a cool way that would be if it comes to fruition to begin his professional journey. So we'll be staying on top of that. Let's get to hockey, though. There was some big Jet news today. Morgan Barron, 2 years, 1.85 AAV, Mike. I had speculated on the show that with Barron proving that he maybe has another gear after the trade deadline, moving to center, I was throwing out there, I would be more than comfortable with a bigger raise into the between 2.5, if you maybe could get a third or a fourth year on the deal. They end up settling on 2 years, 1.85. What do you think of the deal, and what does this mean for Barron and the next 2 years with the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I agree with you, Huss. I think it could have been a bigger number, but I also understand strategically why Morgan Barron and his agent, probably wisely so, wanted a shorter deal because, to your point, I think we're just scratching the surface of what Morgan Barron can do, what Morgan Barron can be with this team, and why not bet on yourself in a way. That's kind of what he's doing with a 2-year deal here, that these next 2 years can be even more productive than what you've shown so far. And so when it comes time to renegotiate 2 summers from now, if it gets to that point, you're now looking potentially at a much bigger number than you would have had you bought some of those UFA years up today. But for sure, there's some risk involved. From the Jets' perspective, you risk now walking him right into free agency in 2 years. But obviously, if things go well over the next couple of years and Morgan Barron continues to grow and develop into a bigger role with this team, I'm sure the Jets will be more than happy to pay a bigger price if that's what it takes to keep him. But at the same time, you can see why, with the cap going up, with his opportunity going up, it's a chance for Morgan Barron to, really maybe cash in a couple of years. And I think we would all recognize, Huss, that centers tend to get paid in a way that, unless you're an elite winger, like, you can make some money as a centerman. And we just started to see Morgan Barron really take on that role. Now, I'm really curious to see how much center Morgan Barron ends up playing next year, because, assuming that Vlad Nemestikov is going to continue to play center, albeit likely not as the 2, certainly not when everybody's healthy. You've got Scheifele, you've got Tays, you've got Lowry. Where does that leave Morgan Barron? Does he potentially go back to the wing? We know Adam Lowry's not going to be ready to start the season. So I fully expect Morgan Barron is playing center on some line, probably the 4th line, to start the year. But what happens if and when everybody's healthy? He shift back to the wing. But does Morgan Barron potentially get a look moving up the lineup? Certainly he's got speed, he's got size. Could we see Morgan Barron get a look in the top 6, perhaps as a winger? I think everything's on the table with him, and I think that's part of why, if you're him and his agent, a 2-year deal, even if it meant a slightly lower AAV, probably made sense at this point.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you, and I was just going through, his numbers. His career high points is 21 2 years ago. He then went 18 and 15, and again, he's often been playing lesser minutes on the 4th line, maybe out there in a PK role. But I think we saw that there's more to give for Morgan Barron. And when he was given that opportunity, really utilize his speed. Listen, 6'4" players that come in around 220 don't fly like that very often. No. And I'm hoping he gets that chance to stay at center. And I would have, listen, what you've got in Vlad. You can move him to the wing, no problem. And that's another option that Scott Arniel will have. But I do think that if he plays in a center role and potentially plays up in the lineup, maybe on the 3rd line to begin the season, he's got a real chance at maybe doubling his output of last year. He had 15 points. I think that if he can play a full season at center for the Jets, even if it's bottom 6, I think we could be looking at a player capable of doubling that, as they say, and getting in excess of 30 points. And that would be big for the Winnipeg Jets, because they're going to need that.
Well, here's a not so hot take, Us. Morgan Barron is now the fastest player on the Winnipeg Jets. A year ago, he was in the conversation, but you had guys like Rasmus Kupari, who I think, based on NHL Edge tracking, he was one of the fastest players in the league in terms of just bursts.
Cardio Kupari.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had Nikolaj Ehlers. Well, Kupari's gone back to play back in Europe, and Nikolaj Ehlers is going to Carolina. Morgan Barron is the fastest player on this roster. Now, Brad Lambert might ultimately have something to say about that, should he make the team. But, what's one of the things I think we're all talking about with this Jets roster right now, certainly it's on my mind, is speed, or maybe a lack thereof. That in some ways it feels like this team has gotten slower this summer with the loss of Ehlers, with Kupari no longer on the roster, and with the players they've signed. Jonathan Tays is not going to blow anyone away with his speed. Gustav Nyquist is not going to blow anyone away. You have Cole Perfetti, who is already on that 2nd line, not the quickest player. Tanner Pearson, who they signed in free agency, not the quickest player. So, it's possible that Barron, for a lot of reasons, could get an extended look. And if it's not as a centerman, perhaps as a winger, again, in that top 6 or top 9, depending on how Scott Arniel wants to run his lines, because I think one of the things the Jets are going to be searching for is some element of speed. And Morgan Barron brings that, along with a lot of other things, as you say, size. He's shown that he's got some hands. And, he's still a young player. There's still some growth there, I think. So, yeah, it was important to obviously get him signed. I don't think there was ever any concern that this was going to drag out. Just as I don't feel there's any concerns with the 2 remaining RFAs in Vilardi and Samberg. I said it last week. I'll repeat it again. I'll be stunned if any of these guys actually get to arbitration. I don't think people should be alarmed that they filed. That's just a procedural thing. And if anything, Huss, it's good for the Jets because it ensures that this doesn't drag out much longer, that there will be some finality to it. And the Jets will know exactly how much cap space they still have to work with. Once you get Samberg and Vilardi signed, they know exactly what they're going to have left. And it's probably going to be a half decent number, whether they choose to weaponize that now vis-a-vis some kind of trade to add to the roster before the season starts, or ultimately sit on it, let it accrue, and weaponize it once you kind of see what's going on with your team. That's a pretty good position for the Jets to be in.
Yeah, I was just talking with Connor and Reem in the last segment before you came on, and I was asking them, who do they think will be a more difficult deal to get done? And I could make the argument that it's Samberg because his importance doesn't show up as much in points and assists, and that often is really the determining factor of the rate. But to be honest, I think there's a mutual appreciation for what Samberg does for the organization. I'd be surprised if they didn't get a 7 or 8 year deal with him on a number that, is maybe not a number that you normally associate with the defenseman playing, his role and not having as much offensive pop. That being said, I think there's more to give, and we'll see that. Vilardi is maybe a little bit more of a challenge. He's coming off a career year. He played the most games that he's had in his life, but he has had some injury issues. And especially if you're looking at ponying up and buying a bunch of UFA years, there is a cost to that. And for a player that hasn't been able to stay healthy, there is a little bit more of a risk. That being said, Mike, they gave up a lot to get him. He's been very productive as a Jet. He's on the top line. They need this guy. Do you agree that one might be a little bit more difficult to get done? And do you think it is a longer-term deal, or are we talking about something shorter that inevitably will get him to UFA quicker?
No, I think it's going to be somewhere in between the 2 years that Morgan Barron got today and what I suspect is going to be the 7 or 8 years that Dylan Samberg gets. It wouldn't surprise me, Huss, to see like a 4-year deal be kind of the sweet spot, if you will, for Gabe Vilardi. And I think that's beneficial to both player and team. Again, and you mentioned his injury history. Like, I think in some ways you're still scratching the surface on what Gabe Vilardi can be. And so there's probably an element of wait and see. And hopefully, if he continues to grow into the role that he has on the Jets and becomes a prolific point producer, he can certainly cash in. And, a 4-year deal now wouldn't preclude a bigger deal from happening once that one expires. But I think there's also that element of risk based on his injury history. You don't want to go too short, but you don't want to go too long. And so, that was always kind of my forecast, that probably more in that 4-year type range. And with the cap going up, there's benefits to doing that. And Samberg, to me, I think you now know, the Jets certainly know what Dylan Samberg is and his importance to them. The one thing that will probably keep his overall price down from really being a huge number is the offense. Although we even saw last year that there is probably more offense there to come from Dylan Samberg. But yeah, it was interesting. I think it was Elliot Friedman a couple of weeks ago said that he actually thought of all the RFA deals, and he was including Barron in the mix, that he thought Samberg was going to be the easiest and maybe the one that gets done first. Well, obviously Barron is now done. But I would concur in that I don't envision anything too difficult when it comes to Samberg. And, I think that there is an appreciation for what he brings. I expect, again, both Samberg and Vilardi to be done before arbitration is actually set. And I think it's this week, Huss, that they're probably officially fixing the dates. I think they start around July 20th and can run into early August. So we should learn very shortly here kind of what the deadline is for both those guys. But I expect they both will get done. I think Samberg's going to be very long-term. I think Vilardi's going to be more in the mid-range term.
Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Mike, while we are on the Jets topic, this is something that won't be as much of a topic moving forward, but I did want to bring it up. I was away last week. When Ehlers signed elsewhere, I was sort of the opinion, and certainly hear it from the most of people in our chat, that, listen, thank you for 10 years, wishing you well moving forward. And I thought that I still think this is probably going to be the case, comes back as a player that left as a free agent with maybe the warmest welcome we've seen of a player in his situation. I will say I've been surprised talking at some people over the last couple of weeks, like after hearing everything that Ehlers had to say, which was very, very nice about Winnipeg and it felt like a family and all this stuff. I've been surprised at the number of people that maybe weren't buying everything that was being sold by the former Winnipeg Jet. Have you had that same feeling? And what do you make of kind of what we got from Nikolaj Ehlers, everything that he said, kind of in contrast to the decision that he made?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe Nikolaj Ehlers when he says he was torn. I don't view this, and I know some will disagree and say, no, they think he strung the Jets along. He thinks, or they'll think and say that he put them in a tough position, that he should have told them earlier that he wasn't re-signing. I really do think he was contemplating a return. And I think the fact that he took until mid-afternoon of July the 3rd to make up his mind and didn't tell the Jets till the evening of July the 2nd, as we've now come to learn, I think Winnipeg was still in the mix. And yet, so the Jets were kind of having to, I guess, hold a spot potentially for him, hold some money. Would they have treated July 1 differently had he told them on June 30th? I don't know, Huss, because, I think the Jets tried to do some things on July 1 that ultimately didn't pan out. I think they were going to try to do those things with or without Nikolaj Ehlers. And I think they would have had the cap flexibility to do so. And I think what we're going to see here when Vilardi and Samberg sign is they're still going to have a good chunk of cap left that they could have dedicated to a Nikolaj Ehlers. Now, did they go out and sign Gustav Nyquist if Ehlers hadn't told them that he was moving on? Probably not. I think that was an obvious pivot, and that signing happened after Ehlers had told the Jets that they were out. But did they still sign Jonathan Toews and Tanner Pearson? Probably. Toews for sure. And, did they still try for Brock Besser and Andrew Mangiapane? Yeah, I think they do, even if Ehlers is coming back. So for folks who are of the, this screwed the Jets and, tanked their plans on July 1, I don't see it that way. And I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just me being soft in my older age. I don't begrudge Nikolaj Ehlers one bit for wanting a change of scenery. I think people do it every day in all different walks of life. They try different things. They try new jobs. They move to different cities. I think Nikolaj Ehlers was a very good Winnipeg Jet for a decade. I certainly appreciated dealing with him as a member of the media. I'll certainly miss that. He was a great interview. Usually told it like it was, didn't sugarcoat things. But I understand why some fans might be a little bitter. I mean, look, breakups can be difficult. They can be messy. The fact is, though, Nikolaj Ehlers, he didn't burn any bridges on his way out. I take him at his word. I think he's being genuine when he says nice things about Winnipeg and the city and the organization. And I think that there's a lot of respect going the other way as well from the organization towards Nikolaj Ehlers, despite how this ended.
Well, you use the breakup, the break, and it kind of does feel that way. And I guess, sometimes it's just time. But
yeah,
I mean, listen, for a guy that always told it like it is, when you hear someone say, loved every second of my time, loved my teammates, loved the coaches, felt like it was a part of everything, loved being in Winnipeg, love, but I needed a change. Well,
yeah.
Why? And I mean, we never really got that answer. And listen, I know some people in chat are going, oh, he wants to play with the top line center, wants to be a first line guy. Well, you know what? If that is the case, say that. I would say, would probably go a long way to, hey, I was looking for a better opportunity. Because to be honest, you got Svechnikov, Jarvis, and Aho on that top line. They've been pretty good together. Now, will he get an opportunity at some point there? Sure. If not, he's playing with Kotkaniemi.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that's not a way better situation than he had right here. And listen, sometimes the grass isn't necessarily greener. Good on Carolina for doing what they had to do to get him signed and convincing him that he was there. I don't know. The more I talk to some people that kind of that have given me this side of the equation, 2 straight years without speaking to the media at the end of the year and all that. A real kind of cloak of secrecy on all this.
Yeah.
You do wonder if this is just a big PR campaign at the end to kind of soften the blow and hopefully have him, people be a little bit softer, will you say, when they come back in.
Yeah, does he want a bigger role? Probably, but I look at it this way, Huss. Like, he's got his money now. Like, a bigger role, so whether it means a few more minutes a night and maybe that leads to a few more points, like, that's not going to ultimately fatten his bank account. Like,
no,
that ship has sailed. Like,
it took less years.
Right.
We signed only a 6-year deal. I would be stunned if there wasn't 7 or 8 on the table for a similar number here.
Oh, for sure. So I think we can assume the Jets were more than willing to make him a Jet for life. And, maybe the AAV would have been a tad lower than what Carolina came in at. But if it's over 8 years, let's just say it's $8 million. That's $64 million, Huss. That's 13 more million guaranteed for an oft-injured player that he left on the table. So, the bigger opportunity thing is interesting because I think when we often hear a player talk about bigger opportunity, we're thinking that they're thinking of, well, what that means down the road for them, like more money. But that's not going to happen. Like, even if Nikolaj Ehlers even if they play him 30 minutes a night in Carolina and he gets 100 points every season, well, what does that actually mean? It doesn't mean any more money to him. His contract's now done. He's not playing for his next contract. So then it comes down to, okay, chance to win Stanley Cup. Well, he did just leave the team that was better than Carolina in the regular season. They were better than everybody in the regular season. So, yeah, I understand why the fact he didn't come out with a smoking gun, if you will, or like one cold cut reason for leaving, and he's kind of dancing around that a bit, why some people would be skeptical. I do understand that. Maybe he just wants to live in a nicer city that's a little warmer in the winter and there's a little less of a spotlight. Again, and maybe he doesn't want to come out and say all that, but we don't know ultimately all the factors he was weighing. We do know some of the cities that were in the mix: Washington, Winnipeg, Tampa, and ultimately he chose Carolina. And, they're a team. They've kind of been waiting for a guy like a Nikolaj Ehlers. Well, now, you wanted the opportunity, you're going to get it. And there's some pressure on you now to, come in, not necessarily be the savior, but they're spending $51 million. They're banking on the fact that Nikolaj Ehlers can come in and be a difference maker. So let's see if he can kind of, walk the walk, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I guess we'll all just, have to make our own judgments or assumptions as to why it all happened. Elliot Friedman a couple of times mentioned, the opportunity to play up in the lineup was something that was believed to be an issue. And granted, that's there. I mean, whether he gets it in Carolina, I guess we'll see. But we've also heard that it was, was looking for a quieter market.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that's the softest thing I've ever heard. I mean, this guy, and listen, I'm a part of it. When was the last time Nikolaj Ehlers was ever really criticized by the media in Winnipeg?
Right.
I can't think of one. If anything, he was lauded as the guy that was the most honest answer, always gave everything you had, which is all true.
Yep.
That's why when I heard that, I'm like, there's no way that can be true. I mean, that's just...
Well, one thing I always appreciated about Ehlers, like, nobody was harder on himself than Nikolaj
he was his
Ehlers.
biggest critic.
And he would come out and he never blamed teammates when things went wrong. Like, he always pointed the finger at himself. But, to be fair to Nikolaj Ehlers, I directly asked him that question when we were on the Zoom a couple of weeks ago about the quieter market. And, he flat out said, no, that's not the case. He always enjoyed dealing with the media here. So I don't know how much stock to put in that. I think, to your point, and you had mentioned previously, Huss, that might have been more to do with like a place like Toronto, for example.
Yeah, exactly. When we'd heard about that, it would be like, oh, does he want to go to Montreal or Toronto? And we're like, okay, whoa. Right. I get that too.
Now, what I'm looking forward to later this week, Huss, for folks who don't know this, the NHL schedule is going to be released on Wednesday. I believe it's coming out at noon. So nicely timed just before
Perfect.
WST. You can break it all down on Wednesday. But if I'm the NHL, let's see if they have a real sense of occasion. There are some juicy matchups now. And I wonder if part of the reason the schedule is coming out so late this year is maybe the NHL wanted to try and line up some plum games coming out of July 1. For example, wouldn't you want Toronto and Vegas to meet like ASAP so you could get the Marner thing done?
Leafs home opener.
It should be. And, looking at the Jets, like, how quickly are you going to get a Jonathan Toews homecoming to Chicago? It should be right away, if not maybe opening night. Same with Ehlers. And so I'll be looking to see how quickly we get some of those matchups. Obviously, Chicago and Carolina, given what's happened in Winnipeg's offseason, no offense to Mason Appleton and the Detroit Red Wings, but clearly the first games against Chicago, specifically in Chicago, and Carolina, specifically in Winnipeg, those will be the two games I'm looking forward to seeing and circling the dates and underlining and exclamation pointing them as soon as we find out on Wednesday.
Mike, listen, great stuff as always. Thanks for doing this. We'll let you get back to the golf course, and we'll look forward to seeing what's going on at the AM tomorrow in the Free Press, and we'll do this again soon. Have a great one, buddy.
You bet, Huss. Enjoy the week.
We're going to dive into Bomber Talk with DT on OB. Derek Taylor coming up in just a minute. Hey, big game on Friday night, Princess Auto Stadium. If you haven't already, or if you've been waiting to maybe jump on some new Bomber gear to be part of the sold-out crowd at the stadium, get on down to Royal Sports this week. They've got an incredible selection of Bomber gear, including many exclusives that you won't find anywhere else. While you're at it, I know they're making a lot of Jonathan Daves jerseys these days and more, not to mention all the great stuff that is Manitoba's summer. Softball, soccer, baseball, tennis, running, bikes, huge Yeti section for you campers. See it for yourself, 750 Pembina Highway, Royal Sports, and follow them on Insta at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Boston Pizza's got their brand new summer menu on right now, folks. Nothing better to enjoy, along with an ice-cold schooner and some Blue Jays baseball and CFL football. Of course, tonight, if you're looking to watch something, it's the Derby. And, of course, Boston Pizza will have the home run derby on. And we can mix that in with some wings and a gourmet pizza and make it a night of yourself. Of course, if you're staying at home, you can always get the great taste of the new summer menu and Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, DT's good to go. Before we bring him in, a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, the Bombers are back after a bye week. Some would say the bye week started earlier than it probably should have, including the game in Calgary. And guess who's back on Friday night? The Stamps, who followed up that win by going in a day late, albeit, and whooping the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Regina. Voice of the Bombers, Derek Taylor, joins us fresh off of an afternoon and morning at Princess Auto Stadium. DT, what's good? How are you, pal?
What's good is Calgary plus 2.5 in game on Coolbet when they were up 7-3, despite having turned the ball over twice already. You went, this game is already out of control, and it's just going to go Calgary's way. I am flabbergasted at how good Calgary has been to beat Winnipeg and to go into Sask with that extra day and beat Sask. Those are two for real teams that Calgary just took out the last 2 weeks. That's impressive.
Well, listen, speaking of Coolbet, I mean, after the season they opened the season as the longest shot in the league to win the Grey Cup at 23-1. Now all of a sudden they're 6-1 behind only the Alouettes, Bombers, and Riders. And I'll tell you what, I mean, we'll get to this game and this matchup in a minute. A huge opportunity for the Calgary Stampeders to reinforce their arrival as a real power in the West. But let's just get to the Bombers first off. I mean, back at practice yesterday, coming off a bye after a complete dud against these Calgary Stampeders. What was the vibe around the team coming back to the practice field after their first loss of the season and some time to chew on it?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's happy to be back. Like, the Bombers are incredible coming off of these bye weeks. And you see it on the field with how loud everybody is and how excited they are to be there. And defensive, Evan Holmes making an interception today and everybody's going nuts as he tips the ball to himself a couple of times. The vibe was really good. That said, when you talk to the guys and you mention, oh, hey, by the way, remember getting stomped by Calgary? They're all very aware of what happened, right, going into the bye. So that part looms. But there's just a confidence, right? This team, we were talking about it yesterday, that what would it be like covering a team that loses a lot of football games? If you had to cover the Edmonton Elks practice today, what would that be like? Well, just hang me, because I'd rather not be there. Yeah, the Bombers just keep winning, right? So when they lose and they're into their last 10 bye weeks in the regular season, they're 4-6. You look at that and go, yeah, but they've only lost like 15 games in those years, but they're 6 going into a bye. That's so weird. Coming out of a bye, they're just absolute nonstop eating machines. So I think they're kind of acknowledge, hey, yeah, it was a terrible performance on, maybe less so on the defense, but as a whole team, not a good performance. But we know we can play better than that, and we've already shown that this season.
So listen, fourth quarter against Calgary, the game is done. You're opening your Twitter feed and you're seeing, what the hell are the starters doing in? And, we know what Mike O'Shea feels. Hey, we're not quitting. We're not waving the white flag. And then Dalton Schoen goes down. I couldn't help but notice I was feverishly looking for your tweets from practice when things got going. And Dalton Schoen's not out there. What do we know about the Bombers all-star receiver and how he's feeling and his availability moving forward?
Yeah, when he went down in the game, I was kind of happy that it was the Bombers getting waxed, because I was in my binoculars really strong at the far sideline going, how's he looking? Is he limping? What's happening? Oh, Nick Hallett's over. Okay, are they what are they talking about? How are they talking with each other? I was looking for any body language, right? Because Mike O'Shea will not tell us anything until he absolutely has to when they declare the roster on Thursday. So Dalton has been there at practice on both days so far, which is to me, it's a better sign than I honestly expected. So that feels like good news. He's very clearly favoring his left leg, which would be if you told me he tore up a knee, I'd be like, okay, well, it was the left one. It is everything it looked like. So it's maybe more positive than I expected, because I expected the worst news. But he's favoring that leg a little bit, and he's been nowhere near practice, right? He's not taking reps. He's not running. He was comically walking super fast next to one of the guys earlier today. He's out for a while. Will it be one game for multiple weeks? Will it be the sixth game they put him on in advance of Friday's game? I guess we'll find out on Thursday. But I think we can say that Dalton is out for a stretch at the very least.
That is that's significant. I mean, we see what Kenny Lawler's doing in Hamilton right now.
Ooh.
We knew that there were other guys that were going to need to step up. Schoen was one of those guys that they didn't have last year that was thought to be that guy. How big of a loss, and what does that do to the Bombers starting offense against an elite defense that's shown it week in and week out so far without 83?
Yeah, it's a big deal, and from a way in which maybe we didn't expect, right? When the Bombers signed Dylan Mitchell in the offseason, I thought, I love that pickup, because Dylan, he's a veteran. He's shown some stuff in this league. He's 4 touchdowns a season, 700 yards last year in a bad offense at Edmonton. He's got some stuff. But Dylan is not a weapon in the slot. And to replace Schoen, who is an absolute killer from the slot, just murdering dudes with the waggle, you're going to somebody else probably for Friday night's game. So you're taking a bigger step down than I perhaps thought you might. You're going down to what it looks like Cody Case is going to be the guy who fills in for Dalton Schoen. Stearns will bump over to Schoen's spot, and Case will take Stearns' spot, blah, blah, blah. But it's a bigger drop off than I would have thought from, Dalton Schoen, one of the top, 5 receivers in the CFL, even with the injury troubles. He's got the most touchdowns in the league since he came into the league, even with all the games he's missed. To a replacement level player in Cody Case it's going to be a problem. And it's going to be a problem when Collaros gets out of the pocket, because Schoen is really good. Really, we've all seen it, right, Huss? We've seen it in the last 4 seasons. He's really good when the play breaks down. Where do I go, and when should I be there? It's to go to anybody else is going to be a problem. But the fact that it's probably not going to be Dylan Mitchell is it's a bit of a slap.
I mean, you can speak to this Dylan Mitchell situation. To me, he was biding his time, waiting for something like this to happen. I mean, what's the takeaway if he doesn't get in? I mean, how far down on this depth chart is he? I think we can all be safe to say that he's probably not on this team if he didn't get that signing bonus to come here in the first place.
Yeah, and the thing I always wondered about, and I think we're seeing it this week, was how do they perceive Mitchell? Because Mitchell, when he was in Edmonton, he was an on-the-ball wide receiver, right? To the point where they tried him in the slot when they brought in Geno Lewis and went, no, you've got to be the Z. You got to be that wide receiver on the far side. He needs to be on the ball. And the Bombers believe he needs to be on the ball as well. So as I looked at this, when they healthy scratched him the first time, I thought, okay, well, he's got to take Carrick Wheatfall's job. Based on the first 3 games, when Carrick Wheatfall was 5th in the league in receiving, he ain't leaving that spot anytime soon, right? So it becomes tough. How do you get him in there if you don't believe that he's going to be a great weapon from the slot? If you don't believe that he is, your best option in the slot, you would have the natural assumption. Hey, Dylan, Dunk says $63,000 signing bonus on 160 or whatever. He's got to be next up, but it's just position to some extent matters with certain guys, and it appears that's what's happening here.
Stanley Bryant, speaking of very important Bombers, also not on the practice field. Is this precautionary, some veteran rest days, or might they not have him in the lineup on Friday?
I lean more toward the first part of precautionary / veteran days, because as that game went on, all of a sudden, boom, Micah Vanterpool in the fourth quarter was at left tackle, and it was the drive before they started, put Strevler in and put Matthew Paterson in. So it feels like there was something else. So he tweaked something along the way. We finally get an injury report from the Bombers today, so we'll know a little more. But just watching him today at practice and yesterday at practice, like he's in his jersey, he's in his shorts. It feels like he's out there, and by Friday, because they have a practice tomorrow, a day off Wednesday, walk through Thursday. My gut feeling is he'll be ready to go on Friday, but I guess we won't really know until Mike O'Shea lets us know, right? So yeah, my gut is Stanley's good to go, because again, I don't know if anything stood out for you, but I remember nothing from that game of Stanley getting nicked or tweaked.
No, me neither. And obviously by the end of the game, we were kind of focusing more on just nobody going down. But yeah, it was, and listen, he is such a pillar, a cornerstone of this team in the offense. It is hard to really even think about how this team looks without Bryant, because it seems like it all starts there on the offensive line, and we know how important that is when it comes to winning football games.
Yeah, one of the things I love the Bombers in the offseason, they went and got depth, right? Or at least they maintained depth along the way. We talked about receiver, and the perception for me that Dylan Mitchell was depth if he wasn't going to be a starter. In this case, if Bryant were not able to play, like last year he missed a couple of games, at this point you bump Micah Vanterpool out to left tackle, and Gabe Wallace, who now has experience starting at left guard, takes over, and then everything is hunky-dory after that. Tuieli then becomes a backup, and then you have other guys. You have Ethan Vibert as a draft pick this year. You've got Ellsbury as a backup American. You go, okay, well, they're covered if they have one injury. You start getting 2 and 3, that's death to just about any team. But I feel like they could cover in the case where Stanley had to miss a game. But like you say, he's still really good. He's really good. Someone gave him a little, I forget if it was the BC game, someone twirled him around pretty good, gave him a shot and spun him 360. And he went, okay, well, there was one that Stanley didn't have this year, but he's been on point the last couple of years in my book. So yeah, it would be like was shown, right? A drop off from Stanley to anybody is a big deal, but I think the Bombers feel comfortable that Micah Vanterpool would take that left tackle spot and hold it down while Stanley, if he's out.
So DT, as far as this game goes on Friday, the Bombers at home, we know what their record is. The Bombers off the bye, absolutely dominant. But I got to tell you, even I think I saw they were a 5-point favorite. This Calgary team, with the way that they are playing and what they've shown on the field in this last couple days, this is going to be a match. Listen, I look at this as a pick'em. This Bomber team has to go in and find a way to win this football game. And I got to tell you, it is going to be, if they don't have Dalton Schoen, there's going to be a lot on Zach Collaros. It just goes without saying. The running game, too. But what would you be expecting or looking for from Zach after a game? I don't want to say he got exposed, but made a couple decisions that burnt him big time, and a defense right now that's not giving up much to anybody.
At the end of the game on CGLB, we're kind of trying to break down the game, because getting lumped like that it doesn't happen very often, right? There was 2023, they lost 30-6 to Vernon Adams and the BC Lions, and you went, what was that? You can't even process that at some level, because this team just wins so much. But we look back at it and went, okay, there were, I forget what the number was, 150 plays on offense and defense. And if you just were able to just adjust 6 or 7, the Bombers win that game, right? Schoen has a drop going left to right into the sun. Collaros in the second quarter just misses Schoen going left to right. And you went, oh, that could have been an 80-yard touchdown, whatever the distance was. Just little plays along the way. Obviously, if Zach doesn't throw either of those pick sixes, which the first one, Dembski comes back to the ball a little bit more, or, is able to shoulder out Damon Webb. The second one, probably a little loose, deciding in the flat to go to Brady and having Derek Moncrief jump underneath it. We go, okay, if just a couple of plays go better, all right, this is a different deal. So if this week a couple of plays go better and the bounces, you get bounces going your way, I feel like they're in this. There's no reason to me to think that Calgary is so much better than Winnipeg. And you mentioned the thing coming off the bye. I had to go back and count it because there's been numbers floating around. Off the bye, regular season, they've won their last 12. Playoffs included, they've won their last 17 games off a bye week. 17, Hustler. if you're a 90-10 favorite 17 times, what you have like a 4% chance to win 17 in a row. Like they're incredible off the bye week. Whatever they're doing works, right? And this is something that for folks who were listening to the OB pregame show, we talked about this. Vernon Adams in the first game against the Bombers, the last now 3 seasons, has had incredible games. The 30-6 game, the 26-24 last year, where Alexander Hollins went nuts and they kind of laid down at the end as to not put too many more points on the Bombers, and it ended up being a 2-point game. And then this last one where he was 220 and 2 touchdowns and no picks and almost no mistakes. The second and third games, the Bombers defense has gotten back at him the past 2 seasons. There was the shutout a couple, forgive me if that was last year or a couple of years ago. So I need to see Vernon Adams do it twice before I think, okay, Calgary's got Winnipeg's number, because Winnipeg is, okay, you've had that first one. Sure, your third receiver zips our safety a few times, but they figure it out in the second game, right? So that's what I expect going into Friday with what I think of this Bombers team. If it doesn't happen that way, we'll have a different conversation. But it makes Friday that much more interesting, and it leaves me with a better feeling about the Bombers, even though they did just get lumped the last time we saw them.
Yeah, I mean, I see some of the lines off the board right now from what I saw earlier, but I will say this. I think I'm going to be on the under in this game.
Interesting.
In that, I think the Bombers are going to be ready for VA. We've seen this team, consistently come back and be able to have much better performances, including against Vernon Adams. After that embarrassing loss, they came back and pounded them twice and ended up winning the season series. My big concern is just the offense and how much the Bombers are going to be able to put up on the board. Because, I mean, listen, all we can judge this new look Stampeders defense is what they've done so far. And DT, they have been as good, if not better, than everybody else in the league. And you take out a Dalton Schoen and a potentially, I mean, let's just assume that Bryant is there and everything else is good. They already had a tough time moving the football with him in there. You bring your biggest passing weapon out against a team that probably is coming in with a lot of confidence. I think the path to victory in this game is probably going to be a lot of Brady Oliveira, a lot of moving the chains, a lot of ball control and field position football. And for that side, I think if the Bombers win, we're probably not talking about a shootout.
That's pretty fair. Calgary's last game against Saskatchewan, which is a good offense, was 24-10, right? That's a hard under. Calgary's defense has been really good. I kind of don't know how. Like, it's at least 11 new starters on that defense, and I kind of don't understand how. That said, just note that Joe Robustelli got off against the Stamps against the Stamps defense last week. He went for 140 or whatever. He gave me a zillion points in fantasy, and I was super happy about that. And you go, okay, well, there's something maybe to be gotten with their corners. Okay, that's something I'll keep an eye on as we go along. Whatever it is about the Bombers going to the bye week is just so strange to me. It'll never not be strange with how good they are, but yet they are 4-6 their last 10 games into a bye. It's so odd that I think there's still plenty of meat on the bone, right? Sure, you lose Schoen, Nick Dembski still Nick Dembski. Carrick Wheatfall appears to have taken a nice leap in year 2. Kevin Sklercy has contributed 10 catches. That's a nice little relief valve for you for sure. Jarrett Stearns had his first touchdown. Jarrett hasn't gotten open downfield a ton, as much as we would like maybe this season, but you go, okay, there's something there. I think there's enough pieces in there. And you know me, as the governor of Kalaris Island, self-proclaimed many years ago, I just think there's meat on the bone for this offense, and Jason Hogan will figure out something for this game coming in week 7.
You are the mayor of Kalaris Island, so I will ask you, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I couldn't help but think this a little bit after that second pick 6. This happens. Father Time is undefeated. Zach lost some of the zip on his ball, and might that need to change the way that they sort of prevent things like that happening? I guess setting up the offense, and does that play in at all to how Jason Hogan is setting things up?
Has he lost some of the zip? I really don't know that I think so, because I can still think of him like the game against Edmonton, right? The deep ball to Wheatfield, deep ball to Dembski. Those balls were incredible. And I know the deep ball up the rail isn't the best example of the arm strength. It's, the out to the wide side of the field that Moncrief took away. That's one that I look more. A deep out to the wide side is not something I think of them doing a ton, but is one the more I think of. But I don't look at Collaros and have real concerns about his athleticism or arm strength, right? His running hasn't looked better in a decade than it has the last season and a half, right?
The wheels are there.
Yeah. And like when you watch it practice, just the gap in passing accuracy between Collaros and any other quarterback, it's incredible. Like, ball's there when it's supposed to be there. And even if it is, you then have to, if you're Zach, if you did lose 15% off your arm, okay, well, I can't do this anymore, but I can do this, right? And his accuracy is enough to me to be able to overcome that versus what I feel like Bo Levi Mitchell struggled with the past 4 seasons before he started to light things on fire this year of, I feel like I can do this. And your arm goes, no, you can't, not right now. Right. So I'm not there with Zach yet. Doug Brown did note last year, it feels like these deep balls are getting underthrown. I wonder if that's just more the Dembski one in the game at BC went, okay, something happened on that one. The wind knocked it down inside the Dome Stadium or whatever it was. So I'm not there, but let's say my eye is open to that being a possibility and then seeing how Zach would get around that, because whatever it is, he's still a real good athlete, right? He's been underrated, I think, as an athlete for his career. So if his arm does lose, a couple miles per hour, I feel like he'd find a way to work around that.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of, acknowledging that if that is the case. And again, I'm just asking the question because, it sort of looked like that was an easier pick 6 for a guy that doesn't throw very many of them. And you wonder whether, you just, at a certain point, you have to acknowledge something and make your decisions based on the evidence that you have at that very time, because things do change at times. That being said, I think he's going to come in. We've seen Zach after poor games, and I think this is going to be a statement game for Zach and the Bomber offense. I just don't know how easy it's going to be to move the ball and put up big numbers against Calgary. So we could be in for a real dogfight. Hey, before we go, last night, was this a story of just how good BC and Nathan Rourke is?
Ooh.
Or just how atrocious the Elks are? That defensive performance was as bad as it gets, DT. What was the difference? It was the second most lopsided time of possession game since they started recording it. You got a quarterback that's throwing easily over 300 yards, a running back with 30 carries in the CFL.
Yeah.
When was the last time you called a game with someone getting the rock 30 times on the ground?
2007 Manitoba Bisons with Matt Henry and Karam Lowen splitting carries. Like it's forever. And then Trey Ford ran for 47 yards and didn't even pass for 47 yards. He outran his own arm, and it was only a 47 yards of rushing. Mike Benavides, the defensive coordinator of BC, is really good. And I was curious about how Edmonton built their team this year. They very clearly said defensive line and defense is where we're going. And in my brain, I went, what about giving a new quarterback, because Trey's new to being the man, giving him receivers to work with? And sure, they tried with Alexander Hollins, ended up cutting him. It's not an overly talented offense that Trey Ford has to command. And when I tried to project them for the year, right, you're doing your futures bets on Cool Bet to start the year. You're like, okay, well, Edmonton over under 8.5. Well, if they get to Cody Fajardo around week 9, I think they're an over team. And there's going to be a point where was week 6 enough to get to Cody Fajardo, because I'm waiting to look into it deeper, watch it a little deeper, but that's an all-timer from Trey Ford. Like, that's Taylor Cornelius level, like Jared Dagey level. If you're an Edmonton Elks fan, like we're in that's some rough territory. The play-by-play scrolled by and I'm like, he took a 17-yard sack. Yeah, that's going to happen because he likes to try to make plays. But clearly Benavides and that BC defense had the plan, because the one touchdown drive was from the BC 19-yard line. Well, that's ain't happening all the time. That was a beatdown. And yeah, maybe Edmonton is what I thought Calgary was going to be this season.
Hey, just on the way out, oh my God, Kenny Lawler.
Oh, is Kenny? I was having this conversation yesterday. Quarterbacks are going to be MOP in the CFL, right? If Bo throws for 5,500, he's the MOP. Unless if a receiver puts up 2,000 and Kenny's got 7 touchdowns already. If you had 2,000 and say 15 touchdowns, that's the MOP. And that's Kenny's on pace for even better than that in touchdowns. He's got to play all 18 games, which he hasn't done in a long time. But holy cow, he is the best of Kenny Lawler right now.
It's impressive. And I mean, Bo's taken advantage of it. Bo had a monster year last year. I think the MOP for Kenny is if he puts up those numbers and for whatever reason, Bo misses a couple games.
Exactly.
And, he's still able to produce at a real level. But he is on one. The Ticats are looking good right now. And they have very much and listen, at the end, last half of the season, they were good last year too.
Yep.
It's just that we know what happens. You start 0-7 or 0-8, you're pretty much done. And they weren't able to dig out of that hole. Well, they avoided that. They're now 3-2, and they're very much live. I saw you post that. Can you imagine the thought of a Bo versus Calgary Grey Cup? I mean, a few weeks ago, that would have been preposterous. And
yeah,
right now, those teams very much in the mix.
As a guy who's holding Hamilton to win the Grey Cup at 16 plus 1650 on Coolbet,
nice.
I'm very happy about that. But I mean, the East, honestly, the East is playing out exactly the way I thought it would right now, which I'm pretty happy about. When Davis Alexander is back in Montreal, they're the best team in the East to my mind. But I thought Hamilton was on the rise, and so far so good. Toronto's on the fall, and Ottawa won a lot of close games last year, and it wasn't going to repeat itself this year. And there they go. Hamilton and Calgary are in first place right now. It just did not expect that to be a sentence I would be saying after week 6.
Can't wait for a Friday. And of course, all your coverage, gang. Get to the tailgate zone early. See DT crush dogs and all the other fun stuff that happens in and around the games. But I guess tonight you'll be sitting down with a coach.
Yes, Coach's Show on CJOB from 7 to 8. There'll be a ton of questions for Mike O'Shea as he joins us live in studio about what's to come, what was the bye week, 2 bye weeks in the first 6 weeks when Ottawa hasn't had a bye week, what that's all about. But yeah, we love having your texts and calls to the Coach's Show on CJOB.
7 p.m. We'll look forward to it. DT, have a great week and looking forward to your broadcast on Friday night. Thanks for doing this, pal.
Thanks, brother.
Good stuff. At DT on OB. Great practice reports and more for the voice of the Bombers, our buddy Derek Taylor. All right, let's get to a little Breezy Bend golf update today. And, considering Mike was there, we'd be remiss if we didn't get you the latest from the Manitoba Amateur. And Mike was not kidding. A 9-way tie for first after round 1 at Southwood. 3 under par is the number. We got Josiah Tong from Heritage Point, Evan Nachtigal from Shiloh, Doug Penner from Steinbach, Payne Wood from St. B, Jack Rudick from Glendale, the fan man, Todd Fanning from Niagara, Drew Jones from Shiloh, Thomas Scott from Glendale, and Connor McCauley from Golf Canada Club. I guess he plays all over the place. Incredible. 3 more, at 2 under. And then there's Alan McDonald, Manitoba Mid-Am champ from Breezy Bend. 2 shots back at 1 under par. And yes, shout out to Mitch Clinton, who had an amazing start, birdieing 3 of his first 5 holes. He did fade a little bit as the day went on. Mitch is 5 over right now after his round. Keep you up to date on that. Of course, Manitoba Open coming to Breezy Bend next month in August. Go to manitobaopen.com for more information on sponsorship, volunteering, tickets. And we'll look forward to being out at Breezy to do our shows there for Manitoba Open Week as well. Courses mint right now. Played it on the weekend. Hey, shout out to the Gold Eyes who are off today. They begin a 6-game road trip tomorrow night in Sioux Falls before enjoying the All-Star break next week. Fish next back at the ballpark downtown the 24th of July to start off a week-long homestand against the Chicago Dogs. Goldeyes.com, 982 base for tickets and all your other information that you need. We're going to get to ASD because we have live racing tonight on a Monday. Only a few Mondays this year, but tonight is that night. We will do that, but let's get Michael Remis in here and we'll get into the cool bet lines and picks before the debut of the WST winners content with myself and JBM. We're going to be talking Blue Jays, Major League Baseball All-Star break, and tonight's home run derby. Good stuff with DT, although I am concerned about Dalton Schoen.
Definitely a concern, and I talked all last week how you're seeing Kenny Lawler, go crazy there, and I did mention MOP. If quarterbacks get injured, no one has an exceptional season, and Kenny Lawler, as Derek said, puts up 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns. It's amazing watching. And if you're the Bombers, you did choose Schoen over Lawler. Obviously, salary concerns, and they were able to bring in guys to shore up the defense. And Wheatfall's playing pretty well too. But
yeah,
I said it was a tough one. Janarian Grant's taking kicks back for the Argos, and Lawler is doing his thing with Hamilton. So it was a tough one after losing the Stampede Bowl. We did have this week off for the Bombers. It was nice watching all the other games. Good conversation with DT. I did like catching up with Mike. Some good Jets offseason. I enjoy the Ehlers talk because where does Ehlers' comments rank in terms of all-time Jets comments after leaving? You've had, I want to be a top-line right side D, or I put on the jersey, and it did feel right. You had Nikolaj Ehlers go, I was here for 10 years. The Jets did nothing wrong. It was time to move on. I'm going to have to use that one in my day-to-day language.
Well, exactly. I'm just looking. There was a lot of comments in here. Let's quickly get to fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No fees. What you see is what you pay. And, of course, Bomber games also on Fans First, and you might need to go there because the game, of course, is sold out. Tracy O said, Huss, I don't think that Ehlers quite knows what he wants. He just knows it wasn't on the Jets. I mean, I don't know how many people, turned down more money to be on a team that finished first overall that you've been such a big part of if there isn't, a reason that he wants. Listen, as they say, I got a lot of love for Nick. I just didn't understand, based on everything that he said, why he ended up leaving.
I'll say this. He doesn't want to sewer anyone. He wants to leave on a high note. I thought he tried to take the high road on the way out, and I give him credit for that.
Well, the road listen, I agree, but just the road he took was so high, it left everyone wondering, well, why the hell are you leaving?
Oh.
So, maybe he just did such a good job on that. Ehlers wanted a challenge, which means a top-line center and responsibility. He knew the Jets wouldn't give him that. Phyllis Nix needed to spread his wings and fly. It's probably the toughest decision he'd ever made in his NHL hockey career. Absolutely, I think it was. And I guess we'll see whether the grass is greener for Nick Ehlers. Certainly the Carolina Hurricanes are happy that he's there, and we will certainly all miss him. As far as Cool Bet goes, again, we're going to really dive in to the home run derby tonight and a bunch of Blue Jays talk and the All-Star futures coming up in 10 minutes when we debut the first WST winners. So I hope you'll stick around and see that. As far as tonight goes for the derby, we'll get into this more coming up. But the big dumper, Cal Raleigh, is the favorite at 3-1. O'Neill Cruz at plus 320. James Wood 4-1. Byron Buxton, he was 9 earlier today. He's now at 8-1. Matt Olson is plus 850. Brent Rooker plus 950, 11-1 for Junior Caminero. And Jazz Chisholm, who was the late ad, 14-1. All sorts of markets. You can bet guys to have the most home runs in round 1, semifinals, make the finals, win the whole thing. Number of homers in the first round, exit velocity. as well as finalist matchups. So, anyways, if it's one of these days where there's not a lot going on, good news, the Derby's on tonight, and we'll have some fun with that. But we'll start off talking about the Jays at the break. Of course, huge thanks to Coolbet, who's presenting all of our WST winners content. There's a new podcast feed for that, which we'll put up. Please make sure to get a sub into that. And we're just around the corner from weekly NFL pick shows, which are going to be a hell of a lot of fun right here on the station. All right, we've got about 5 minutes before we head over to WST winners. Remo, it's a weird night tonight at Assiniboia Downs. You've got a couple of really small fields earlier on, and then some big races later on. So I'll be honest, I'm really sort of stacking things between races 4 to 7.
Yeah, and I did the bets last week solo, so are you doubling up?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be spreading that over the next 3 days, whatever you prefer?
I'll double up today and tomorrow.
I have my picks in, and there were some canceled or scratched horses, so I have my picks in. I went 0 for last week. I'm trying too hard, Huss, to hit you, to match you. So I'm doing some tries with long shots, and it's not working out. So I'm trying that again tonight. I don't care. I'm in a hole. I'm trying to go down swinging here. So I am on race 2 to start. I have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. I spread out the wealth tonight.
Nicely done. Okay, fire away. For your first couple, I'm just on starting on race 4.
Okay, I'm on race 2. Did an exacta. This is a bit of the favorite exacta. 5, 6. That was kind of the easy one. I did $3 box, so that's $6 total. I don't have race 3. I have race 4. I have horse 6 to place. Unknown caller. Getting sick of these unknown callers. Huss.
Unknown caller.
I'm getting sick of him. I got called the other day. It says it's from my bank. Pick up the phone. And they're like, hi, I'm from blah, blah, blah on behalf of the bank. I'm like, oh no, this is someone trying to sell me credit cards. And so they say their speech. And I say, no, thanks. It's okay. I already have, a credit card. I have it. I'm in debt. I don't need more. And they say, no, but listen, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, I already said no. That sounds great. I appreciate it. And then, I'm good here. And then they keep going, trying to sell me again. I said, look, I've said no twice already. I know you got to do your job, but I have, time here. This is wasting my time. Bye-bye. And I hung up. So that's happened to me a couple times. And I want to call my bank and say, hey, don't get these people to call me and say that it looks like on caller ID that it's from the bank, but it's not. I thought maybe it's a problem with my account or I got hacked. Anyways, unknown caller to place. There
Nicely
we go.
done. That was race number 3 or 4?
That was 4. Yeah, that was 4.
Okay. 4. I'm going with 7 to win and a 4, 5, 7 triactor box.
That's on 4?
Yeah, on race 4. 4, 5, 7 for the tractor box, and I'm putting $4 on 7 to win.
Oh, you're going hard. Okay. I'm on race 5. I'm going with a long shot here. Screw it. The Ronald to win. You think of Ronald McDonald? You know any famous Ronald?
That's 4?
5. I did 4. I did.
No, okay, sorry. No, horse number 4 is the Ronald.
Yeah, the Ronald. Yeah, Ronald.
Okay,
you think
funny.
Ronald McDonald?
I thought about I actually thought about putting the Ronald in, but I actually went with, you knew I was going to put Blazing Bow in a triactor. Love Blazing Bow. We've got Blazing Bow, Judo, and we're going to go 5, confusing. So a 5, 9, 10 triactor box for that one. Race number 6.
Yeah.
I'm going on Will the Thrill to win, horse number 1.
Yes, I have Will the Thrill, 156. Will the Thrill, always the little one, and Dragon Drew. I could have done Will the Thrill, Dragon Drew, and like Charming Charlie. Those are the chalk picks, but I try to get a long shot in there. It's funny how they all got there's 3 horses with a first name in there, like a person's name.
I'm gonna have to. I'll add in a couple of more exotic ones, but for race number 7, I'm starting off right off the bat. Number 4, Tiz Lord to win. I always like those Tiz horses. So,
I have that too. Tiz Lord to win.
All right, well, let's get a win tonight. Let's team up for a little tag team right now.
Yes.
7:30 is live racing tonight, tomorrow and Wednesday. Again, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, all summer and fall long. Some selected Monday nights. That is tonight. So if you're looking for something to do, great night to head out to the track. I think I'm going to go down there with some friends this evening. So looking forward to that. If you are staying at home, you can always bet along remotely at hpibet.com and check out Kirk and Stretch do their thing on the Assiniboia Downs YouTube channel. How about that? Perfect timing, Remis.
Well done, WST winners. And I pinned the podcast link too, so it's on there. That is now live on Apple and Spotify. Exciting
That's where you're
stuff.
going to get all the NFL weekly shows.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing a bunch of hockey content as well. You know, Jets futures. We'll do some big nights where we'll be putting some picks together on big slate nights. We're waiting for the schedule on that. But yeah, if you are listening on the podcast, go to the links or just at WST winners, and we'll have a lot of fun stuff coming up with myself, Jake and Pat from Coolbet, Connor and Michael throughout the year, more than we get to on the daily show. All right, well, with that, we'll take a break. If you're with us on YouTube, don't go anywhere. Check out the debut, myself and JBM, our first installment of WST winners, presented by our friends at Coolbet. Talking Blue Jays at the break, AL and NL futures, and our picks for tonight's Home Run Derby. That is next, and we will see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great one, everyone.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.